This chapter marks the beginning of a flashback that gives us some insight and background into Tom, Franky, and Iceberg, and obviously their relationship.
One Piece, Chapter 353, The Legendary Shipwright.
Well, hello, my brothers and sisters of the Nerd Nation. I, as always, am Jim, here to bring you another review on the awesome and tantalizing, cleverly woven, sometimes flashback-heavy tale of One Piece. Our last chapter saw us, of course, with the CP9 agents busting into the secret warehouse and trashing the place, along with Franky for the most part. Usopp is sitting there cowering in fear, and really it just ended with the whole, you know, we know what the deal is, we know you got the blueprints, we want the damn things, and we want them now. And that's how things left off. And that's right where things pick up. The first few pages, as a matter of fact, is really them going and... at first, it's Rob Lucci going and kind of looking at some of the different keepsakes and things like that he had around there, and realizing and putting two and two together that this used to be Tom's company, Tom's Workers, which was actually a company before the Galleon company was formed and brought together by Iceberg. He wound up bringing together several different companies, you know, that were always fighting for business and whatnot, and kind of brought them all together under one roof. But that's a story for another time. The point is that really Lucci's just kind of trouncing on his memories, you know, and sort of making fun of him for, you know, oh, this must have been a great place, you know, to grow up, even though it was, you know, and he's just really just kind of demoralized, demeaning him. And really what winds up happening with this is that they say, listen, you know, and then Franky's like, just get the hell out of here, you know, and they're like, nope, not until we get what we want. They, of course, want the blueprints for the legendary battleship Pluton. And he's, you know, he claims he doesn't have them. He, you know, won't give them up. And so they, you know, they start beating the shit out of him some more, kicking him around. Kalifa hits him with her thorn whip thing and whips him around. And he basically is just getting trounced on. Usopp's sitting there wondering, you know, what should I do? What should I do? And, you know, cowering in fear. And that's about it. The rest of the chapter, though, goes into what I think is a pretty cool, pretty significant flashback. And the reasons for the flashback are, number one, it takes us back, and it shows us, obviously, a younger version of Iceberg in his teen years, and then in Franky when he was 12, and it says it was 22 years ago. Water 7 itself, a few chapters ago, Franky had explained about the Aqua Laguna thing and everything like that to Usopp, that for years, or every year, basically, when this Aqua Laguna comes, the tide winds up, yeah, it recedes, but it's a little bit higher than last year. So there's actually parts of the original city that are underwater now still, because they had to kind of build on top of it over here. So nonetheless, the Water 7, very cool, very interesting place. But we see this kind of backdrop into, we know that Franky now, 22 years ago, he was 12, so we know he's in his mid-30s, 34 years old. We also know that Iceberg was 16 at the time, so he's obviously in his late 30s, almost 40. Not real significant, but it is nice to know and get a little bit of a jumping off point. But we also get introduced to Tom, the legend, the legendary shipbuilder. And we find out that Tom is none other than a fishman. He's a fishman, and or he was a fishman. He's dead now from what we know. But so this dude winds up going and very quickly into the flashback, we wind up getting this part where he kind of walks out and he's holding a ship in one hand and he's holding the masts underneath it in his other hand, and he like tosses the ship up in the air, and while it's still in midair and like upside down before it's flipping back over, he goes and he's like and just puts the masts in, and then it's like boom, and that's his whole thing, you know, boom, when it hits, you know, to obviously test the durability and the strength of it. And what we wind up seeing is everything leading up to Tom and his actual eventual capture by the world government and everything else. We see that later on that night, he's at dinner, I guess, you know, sitting around with his workers, and we see that Iceberg and Franky kind of have like a love-hate relationship going there. It's almost like an older brother, younger brother, like a sibling rivalry type thing. You know, they seem to argue a lot about stuff. Franky likes to build these little ships, and he names each incarnation of it the Franky 4, the Franky 5. He's on the 8th one right now. And Tom gets a kick out of it. He thinks it's kind of funny, you know. Iceberg thinks it's a silly waste of time. We see a younger version of Kokoro, which obviously she's the older hag that we see now. So Kokoro we see, and she's introduced as lovely, beautiful young secretary Kokoro 20 years ago. And I don't know, I still wouldn't fuck her with a stolen dick, but whatever. That's just me. Nonetheless, so she just has this weird look to her face that is almost like doll-like in nature, but not like a cool doll, like a creepy doll. And then, actually, I don't know. I even don't know much about dolls. I had 3 younger sisters, so I saw some of them, but have never possessed one myself. So I've got all my action figures and things like that. Those are the toys, the dolls for boys. But really, we wind up seeing it, and she keeps telling Tom not to laugh so hard. You know, it's not good for him not to laugh so much, because he's just like, oh, he thinks everything's so funny. But we do wind up finding out a little bit about things. He winds up talking about a ship, because, you know, Franky says something something in regards to, you know, being able to build this great pirate ship or whatever, you know. And he says, listen, he goes, you just build ships. You just want to build quality ships. And this is what I liked, is you just want to be a quality craftsman and be proud of your work, be able to puff out your chest and be like, boom, you know, I did that, right? What somebody does with their ship is none of your business. You don't control that part of it. That's how I looked at it. He goes, if they decide to put a skull and crossbones and raise it, you know, hey, it's a pirate ship. If they wind up putting a seagull, it's a Navy ship. I mean, you know, whatever, man. It could be a freight ship, a carriage ship, a passenger ship. You just want to make sure you make the best ship you can, you know. So I kind of like that. I like getting that little bit of a background and that little bit of history of him. But then we wind up seeing, and these are the events leading up to him obviously coming in and getting captured. And what winds up happening is then there's this judiciary or judicial boat that winds up coming in ship. And I guess that's where they actually have, it's like a pretty much like a floating courtroom is what it is. And the world government appears that they've come for him. They've come for him, and we find out that Tom's connection to everything. Obviously, there's a lot going on that was explained with Water 7 itself. Because of piracy increasing and things like that, it's very, and because of the Aqua Laguna, they have to go offshore to actually get off the island to get more materials for building and everything like that. So there's not enough to go around. So consequently, this is they're setting the table for us for all these different companies that were warring and fighting amongst each other, because they're cutthroating and backstabbing each other. You know, it's obviously to get work, right? Because there's plenty of work, but it seems like there's not enough materials and things like that to go around. Maybe I got it backwards, but ultimately it seems like their supply lines are cut off at this point. So what we wind up having, and then we also see Tom that's working on some kind of blueprint at night, and I'm assuming that that's for this actual Pluton. They kind of allude to it, they hint to it, but they don't say it is. But anyway, so these government officials come off, and we find out that Tom's connection to the whole overarching story is that they're holding him accountable for, they had just executed Goldie Roger, and his ship, the Oro Jackson, right, was built by Tom, right, and his workers, his company, or what have you. And so they're saying that's like guilt by association. It's like aiding and abetting a known pirate or fugitive or whatever, as if he built it knowing that this guy was going to be a pirate or whatever. And they're going to go and take him away. They're going to take him away to Ennie's lobby, which I didn't really know about except for it's been mentioned a couple times in here. And then I know from everybody in the comments, wait until you get to Ennie's lobby, wait until you get to Ennie's lobby. So I know that's probably the next arc or the next part of this arc, I guess. I'm not sure. But anyway, we know it's another destination that's somewhere within a reasonable distance of being able to get to from Water 7. But he's going to be conveyed there. The chapter ends that he's going to be conveyed to Ennie's lobby for his execution. The shipbuilding engineer Tom will be conveyed to Ennie's lobby, where he will be executed. And they wind up giving us that kind of oh shit, that cliffhanger at the end of it. Now, for me, the big things were obviously his connection to the Pirate King, to Goldie Roger. The fact that he actually built his ship and has some knowledge of it because of the inner workings and whatnot that you would have as an engineer on a ship, I think is great. And we know now that his 2 pupils, Iceberg and, of course, Franky, or Cutty Flam as he was known back then, are also, you know, they would also have some knowledge of that. Maybe they even worked on that ship. I'm not really quite sure at this point. However, I think that this is it's the closest that we've ever been to anybody who's directly kind of known the Pirate King. I don't know how well he knew him, but the fact that he actually went and built the ship that he used to sail the Grand Line, and we presume wind up getting to the end of the Grand Line to Raftel, I think is pretty significant. So that's where the chapter ends, though. And honestly, my chapter question for you, brothers and sisters, is really, what are your thoughts on Tom himself, Tom the shipbuilder? Obviously, we know that fishermen have great strength, so for him to do that feat where he threw the ship up in the air and then put the mast into it, at first I was like, huh? And then I was like, oh wait, these guys can lift houses up like it's nothing else, like it's nobody's business. But what are your thoughts on Tom, of course, just the character that we were introduced to, and what his connections are to the actual Pirate King, Goldie Roger? Leave your answer to that question in the comments down below. Feel free to hit the thumbs up, the like button if you should think that I deserve it, and subscribe if you haven't done so already. We'll look forward to catching all of you in the next one, Nation.
Remember to follow me on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and even other channel.